Hey YouTube, Ryu here. I just watched a video that was trying to explain why digital copies of video games cost just as much as a physical copy. And I was unimpressed by the argument. My reasoning for it is simple. I'll go ahead and I'll link the video in the description, so you can go ahead and you can watch, so it'll go ahead and make sense. If you want to go ahead, go there, watch their reasoning, and then come back, watch my video, by all means, go ahead. But what frustrated me about it, and I understand that they were trying to be as fair to companies as possible, is the companies don't care about fair. Is it fair that they're sitting there and doing this to their consumers? No, it's not. A lot of people nowadays are sitting there and saying that a lot of video games that are coming out definitely aren't worth the $60 that it costs for these big AAA titles. And they made an excuse, and it's such a tired excuse. I'm over it with these companies being there to make money. Yeah, they're there to make money, but the thing is right now they're all acting as one giant entity. It's not one of those situations of, oh, well, competition dictated that it went to this. No, that isn't it. They've stopped competing. Like, yeah, they're competing to get us to buy their games, but they're not competing as far as price point is concerned. They're competing because of pre-order culture. How much can they carve out of their game and give to people who pledge their loyalty early? That's the problem that's going on here. And as far as basic business is concerned, anyone who has been involved with a business, has, built a business from the ground up, or it even helped someone build a business from the ground up, been part of that process, will realize that going ahead and lowering the price of your product, yeah, you're not going to make as much margin off of it. That is true. But you're also going to get more sales if it's a significant enough drop and put you ahead of your competition. And if your competition lowers it, you both might get those extra sales as well because of a less prohibitive price. And just to really solidify that statement, because I know there's a lot of people that are going, well, that kind of makes sense, but it only makes sense in a perfect world. It's not a perfect world. It's actually basic business 101. And I'm going to be completely honest here. It frustrates me that these businesses have gotten so greedy that they've forgotten this aspect of it. A lot of people are saying, well, with the price of games being what they are now, I can only afford 1 or 2 games a year. And that's not an uncommon thing to hear. There's some people that are all like, yeah, I can buy 4 or 5 games a year. Yeah, good for you. But you're definitely not the norm there. A lot of gamers have jobs, have responsibilities. Hell, the average age of gamers is from school age to early career. Not exactly when you're rolling in a whole lot of extra expendable income. Now, these games think that they're only competing with each other. They're not. They're competing with other with other items, cars, so on and so forth. And people are having to budget more and more nowadays. And video games are the thing that tends to get ticked off the list because they're not necessary. A lot of people have found that game that they can play for hours and hours and hours, not get bored of it. Minecraft must be an absolute nightmare for these people. But the problem is they could go ahead lower the cost of games by $15, still keep the brick and mortar stores happy. You know, they could still go ahead and sell their consoles, still have those big hype releases, that sort of thing. Still have the games sold kind of at the retailer. You know, so if someone walks in, they can go ahead and do that. You know, buy the card and that sort of thing. Still get that lower price, and also buy accessories and so on and so forth that they're already going to be in the store to buy anyway. So there's still that there. Collector's editions, again, it would lower the price of collector's editions. They'll sell more collector's editions. $15 can be the make or break of that. I've seen so many people up at the register that asked how much the collector's edition was going to be, and they hear, you know, $80, $90, $100, and they're like, I can't quite afford it. And the thing is the margin on it would still be immense. In fact, it would be just as high. They'd still be making just as much money, and you'd have less waste. So it would be good for the environment. I mean, I know there's a lot of these companies that say that they're concerned about the environment. Well, guess what? Time to put up or shut up. This is a great way of doing it, as well as making your games financially more viable for people. To where you get more sales, which means more margin, which means more money in your coffers. Not a really big leap of logic there. There's a saying, you know, every once in a while you have to lose to win. Well, that's what's going on here. If they were to go ahead, go digital, and don't get me wrong, I'm one of those people, I like a physical copy of a game every once in a while, but the thing is if it means a across-the-board drop in price, I'm willing to go ahead and make that sacrifice. A lot of people are. In fact, a lot of people are already buying primarily digital anyway. The only times that they buy physical copies is when they have to. Like with Nintendo's games, you know, for handhelds and so on and so forth, because they don't want to sit there and buy digital because Nintendo doesn't let you transfer the shit over to the new console. That's the type of shit that keeps people from wanting to go with digital, because once they have it where it's all like, oh, well, you're getting a new device. Oh, well, sorry, you have to buy your entire game library again. A lot of people are scared of that. That was one of the major fears when digital first came out. A lot of the companies, though, have it where when you buy a new console, you can bring it over to the new one. Look at Steam, you know, I mean, as far as Steam is concerned, once you've bought it, it's in your library. You log on to that new system when you power it on after you've downloaded Steam onto it, and then you can go ahead and re-download your games. You can even go ahead and transfer the files from your games if you're savvy. So, not too big of an issue there. But the thing is they could easily get more sales. Because a lot of people, they're all like, look, I have this much money budgeted. You know, I can only spend this much on gaming. Well, the thing is would you rather have one sale from a person and make the margin off that, or potentially have two sales, maybe even more from that person? It's one of those things where companies have to meet the customers halfway at this point. And that's a sad state of affairs to begin with. A company shouldn't be meeting the customer halfway. They should be going to the customer in its entirety. They should be going to their consumer base. It shouldn't be this attitude of, oh, come clamoring to us because we have what you need. Don't do that. And it really took me off in the video where they said, oh, well, you know, indie devs can do this and, you know, coalitions can do this. Yeah, they can, but they're not there making this massive amount of money, and yet they're still up and running. Just because a company is big, they grew that company that big. That's their problem. Should not be ours. It shouldn't be our responsibility to keep them up and running. Not to mention, would those companies really be so big if they'd ended up going digital? No, you better bet they would have downsized a lot of their company. And, there's people that are going to be like, oh, yeah, great, so that'll lose a lot of people jobs. Yeah, it will. But it's funny, that this is the only time where you hear people bitching and complaining about that, is when they're defending the big AAA companies. But the thing is at this point, they're gouging not because games are costing so much, not because they want to keep people employed. No, they're gouging because they want to keep those brick and mortar stores happy. And it's the only way for them to continue to maximize their profits is by gouging like this. They feel like they don't have to be competitive, and that is a really big problem. Now, I'm speaking from a U.S. point of view, all right? Capitalist, and just overall, just looking at big business as big business. They want to maximize their profits, but to go ahead and do that, you have to have the sales. And as video gaming becomes more and more expensive, that price is going to become more and more prohibitive, and that means less and less people are going to play, and we're going to see what we've been seeing. Constant increases in some way in the price of gaming. At first, it was the price of video games themselves. And kind of understandable, the cost of developing the games was going up as they needed to put more work in for better graphics. But at this point, we've kind of hit that graphics cap. So now they can't justify raising the price of the actual game anymore. So then they started doing DLC. And they kept getting caught over and over again, slicing out parts of a completed game and gating it off, and then selling it to us. They've been selling games to us piecemeal for a long time. But now that's not even enough. And so now they're jacking up the price of consoles. So they're having you pay more money up front to pay more money for less and less complete video games. Doesn't exactly sound like they're too interested in fairness. So my question is, why should we?